What if I told you that one of the most important legal decisions in American citizenship history happened nearly 170 years before the Declaration of Independence, in a case that wasn't decided in the colonies or the United States, but in England, by judges who were serving a king, not a president, about a child born in Scotland? That sounds obscure, a little bit all over the map, I get it. But the decision became one of the foundations of birthright citizenship throughout the English-speaking world. Its influence would eventually reach the American colonies, the Constitution, and modern debates that we see today over immigration and citizenship. This case was known as Calvin's case, and it helped answer the question that still sparks debate today. Who belongs to a nation? Now, the story begins in 1603 when Elizabeth I dies without children. The English throne is then passed to James VI of Scotland, also known as James I of England. For the first time, England and Scotland shared the same monarch. But there was a problem. England and Scotland remained two separate kingdoms, separate governments, separate laws, separate legal identities. So people began to immediately ask questions, including an important one. If someone was born in Scotland after James became king of both realms, could that person own property in England? So the case centered on a young Scottish boy named Robert Calvin. Calvin had been born in Scotland after James became king of both England and Scotland. Lawyers argued on whether Calvin could inherit land in England. Now, at first glance, this just sounds like a property dispute, but it quickly became something much larger. The courts had to determine what made someone a legal subject of the king. Was it loyalty owed to a kingdom, Scotland or England, or was it to the monarch himself? In 1608, the judges ruled in Calvin's favor. Their reasoning was revolutionary. The judges argued that a person's allegiance was owed primarily to the sovereign rather than to the particular territory. Because Robert Calvin had been born under the allegiance of King James, he was a natural-born subject of the king. Therefore, he could inherit property in England. Now, this became known as the doctrine of jus soli, the law of the soil. Or simply put, if you were born under the king's protection, you were generally born into allegiance to the king. So this was a major shift. Rather than defining membership primarily by ancestry or ethnicity or bloodline, the court emphasized birthplace and allegiance. The judges argued that those born under the sovereign's protection owed obedience to the sovereign. In return, the sovereign owed protection to them. Rights and duties went together. Protection created allegiance. Allegiance created membership. This idea would become one of the defining features of English common law. Now, the case also reflected broader ideas about natural law. The judges discussed the idea that human beings possess certain rights simply by virtue of being people. Many legal scholars later connected Calvin's case to English traditions that favored movement, settlement, and migration throughout the king's dominions. In an age before passports and visas and modern immigration systems, movement across much of the English world was generally assumed to be lawful unless specifically restricted. This ruling reinforced a relatively open understanding of membership and belonging. When English settlers crossed the Atlantic, they brought these legal ideas with them. The American colonies operated under English common law, and that meant Calvin's case became part of the legal inheritance of colonial America. Colonists generally understood that people under English jurisdiction possessed rights as English subjects, which is one of the reasons that there was a big hoopla over no taxation without representation. If the Americans were English, they should be represented in Parliament. So even after independence, though, many of these legal assumptions survived. The revolution only changed the sovereign. Instead of the king, it's now the people. But many legal traditions remain, including Calvin's case. Fast forward to the 19th century, after the Civil War, the United States adopted the 14th Amendment. Its citizenship clause declared all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Many legal historians note that this language closely resembles the common law tradition established by Calvin's case. Birth within the territory is what creates citizenship, not ancestry, not race, not ethnicity, birthplace. This doctrine that began in 1608 continued to influence American law more than 250 years later. Today, Calvin's case remains relevant because birthright citizenship remains controversial. Some argue that citizenship should be based primarily on ancestry or legal status. Others point to the long-standing common law tradition reflected in both Calvin's case and the 14th Amendment. The debate often centers on whether America should continue following the principle of jus soli or adopt a different standard. Regardless of where one stands politically, understanding Calvin's case helps explain why birthright citizenship became so deeply rooted in Anglo-American law. At its heart, Calvin's case really wasn't about land. It was about belonging. It asked fundamental questions. What creates membership in a political community? What obligations do governments owe people born under their protection? And what obligations do those people owe in return? Those questions remain as important today as they were in 1608. Most Americans have never heard of Robert Calvin, yet the case bearing his name helped shape centuries of American and English legal thought. It established principles of allegiance, protection, and birthright membership that would influence citizenship law across the English-speaking world. From the courts of King James to modern debates over immigration and citizenship, the legacy of Calvin's case continues to echo. And it leaves us with an important question. Should citizenship primarily come from where you are born, who your parents are, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments.